Welcome to the Girlfriend God Podcast, a podcast in search of and in service to the divine feminine. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to follow it, rate it, review it, and share it with your friends. Now, together, let's find the divine.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Girlfriend God podcast. Today, I'm excited to have a mini panel with Dawn Morningstar and Michele Ray. Dawn's been on the show before last season, and she is one of the co-founders of New World Women, which you've also heard advertised on this show. So just a little bit more about Dawn. She is an award-winning author, a women's self-empowerment coach, podcast host, educator, TED Talk speaker, former radio talk show host, and devoted advocate for women's self-empowerment. Dear to her heart is being a co-founder of New World Women, a global women's self-empowerment sisterhood. She's also the creator of the amazing Facial Serum 18. Since her book, Venerable Women, Transform Ourselves, Transform the World, was published in 2016, Dawn has been speaking to groups of women over 1,500 times. And after coaching women for 37 years, she founded Venerable Women in 2013 and then went on to co-found New World Women with Mecca and Shawn Vougeot in 2018. All of her links and how you can support Dawn, you can find in the show notes. And Michele is a transformative intuitive coach and spiritual teacher. She is the founder of the Center Within. She is also an author of Living from the Center Within, Co-Creating Who You Are Becoming. She's graduate faculty at the University of California, Irvine, and also another luminary, just as I am in New World Women. She offers guidance, coaching, and classes for individuals and groups as we navigate through accelerated changes and opportunities during this emerging new era. And we're going to talk more about that. She believes we are co-creating a world that supports flourishing for all beings. It is time for every person to realize their full potential. Working with Michele accelerates and amplifies her clients' natural process of becoming their most empowered, authentic, multidimensional self. And you can also find all of Michele's contact information and how you can support her by taking a class or signing up for the newsletter and a whole bunch of other stuff. So with that, I'm really happy to welcome both of you to the show today.
Thank you, Kelly. It's good to be back, and I love your format. I love the authenticity of these interviews, and I really enjoy listening to them myself. I texted you and told you I really enjoyed listening to your episode from last Saturday. So thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dawn.
And thank you, Kelly. This is my first invitation. And I really appreciate being with two powerful goddess women. I too have enjoyed listening to your podcast over these many months and am delighted to be here with you both.
Thank you both. It's always nice to hear such kind words from my Dawn, didn't you call yourself a fangirl?
I'm a fangirl for sure.
So nice. It's so nice. So we decided to title this episode Sacred Feminine Prosperity in the New World. So that is a combination of being empowered by the goddess and being empowered by ourselves and being empowered by New World Women. So where would you like to, which aspect of that would you guys like to talk about first?
Mhm. Well, I think that it might be a good starting point to say what New World Women is, because that'll make sense as to how Michele and I are here together. I was saying to Michele before we came on that she would certainly be an extraordinary guest on her own, and you'll see why in a little bit.
Right. And New World, what New World Women is a little bit different than it was last season.
Well, it's not different, it's expanded. I would say that we have stayed true. We continue to stay true to our spiritual vision
Mhm.
of supporting women's self-empowerment. Notice I did not say empowerment because I always feel like empowerment implies that one person is giving power to another. But if it's self-empowerment, we are accessing that power within that each of us has. And so New World Women has from the very seed of inspiration for all of this, we knew that we wanted to serve women in the ways of awakening their own inner wisdom. It's like we're not teaching women anything really. I think what we're
Right.
doing is awakening what is already inside, and community and connection. Which I mean, it's always been important for women, but it's extremely important now in these times when many women's rights are being taken away or challenged and all of that, for women to come together in a safe space. And then the increased prosperity has always been a part of New World Women too, because it's great to have community and these awakening teachings, but if you can't pay your electric bill, you're still stuck. And
Right.
so we added that aspect to it with a very unique model, which we can get into later. And so the expanded part of that is, I will say it like this: Birdie, Birdie, Birdie. That is the name of our new, beautiful, it's an all women vendor marketplace. And this is so that women can bring their products, services, and teachings to market, and it removes a whole lot of barriers that women have. And so it's birdie.shop. People can go on there and support these women creators, and with people being more conscious of how they're spending their dollars and what they're supporting when they spend.
Mhm.
I believe the timing is really important and good for this right now. And one more thing I'd love to say and will say about our teaching program. It's New World Women Live is what these teachings are called, and they are free and open to all women, the live versions of them. And then members are able to go back and access the replays. And I really want to give a special shout out to Michele Ray, who she will speak for herself. You will see what I mean.
Mm.
Yet her light is, it's brilliant, it is courageous, and it's both really intellectual and really easy to understand at the same time,
Mhm.
which is a really, I believe, a very beautiful mix. So anyway, that's a little bit about New World Women. Our luminaries are our teachers. Birdie is our all women vendor marketplace. And for our members, they all get cash back quarterly from what is sold in the marketplace, which is a very unique model, and also get referral payments if they tell women about New World Women who end up joining. So I hope that helps everyone to understand what we're
Mhm.
up to and why. It's about self-empowerment, because when women are self-empowered, their personal freedom expands, as does their agency. And that's what we want more of in our world right now.
Well, they say that when women do better, everyone does better.
That's our motto. It's right on the website.
Mhm.
And New World Women are ready for better. That is our tagline, ready for better.
And you talked about this kind of awakening to our own empowerment. And for me, I would say that the sacred feminine prosperity part of the whole deal is so my favorite quote that's on my website and in the signature line of my emails is from Patricia Monahan, which is the goddess has never been lost. We've just forgotten how to find her.
Mm, yeah. Absolutely. And Kelly, I also want to thank you for being a New World Women luminary. And we look forward to your new teachings coming up when you are ready. I know you have 8,000 things on your plate right now. So when you're ready, we will really be happy to have your teachings.
Yes, and I look forward to doing that too. I just need to wait for a window.
Yes. Yes.
So, Michele, anything to add to that as a fellow luminary and what drew you to New World Women, and how has it been for you?
Yeah, New World Women, like all three of us are saying, is very much in alignment with my own heart song, my own divine blueprint. The sacred is in all of us, and uncovering it and unprogramming and unconditioning, we find that's what's revealed. And so for me to be in alignment, in community with like-minded, like-hearted women, with a process of support and community that opens that up in us so we can find that sacred, that path back to the sacred, is really in alignment with my own personal mission in this lifetime. And I do feel like the goddess lives inside of us, and we have access to the archetypal energies of the goddess. And I found it very interesting to really look into the prosperity and abundance goddess and realize that in every single sacred tradition, there is one, right? And so to tap into that energetically, to open up to the power, like rekindles the matching internal vibration, right? In our own blueprint, in our own mind, body, spirit matrix, and to be able to live from that, to know ourselves individually as an I am, right? That I am worthy, I am abundant, I am living in my power, I'm living my most empowered, authentic life. And it looks different than everyone else's, just like the goddesses look different in their archetypal energy, right? Because if we each move in and live into our strengths, whatever they are, the fabric, it's like an orchestra, right, of humanity. And we all play this instrument the most powerful way we know how. Like, let that spirit, let our breath come through and express in the world in that empowered, prosperous way, because opportunities are arising all the time where there's a void, there's a lack, or somebody's looking to grow. And when we bring ourselves forward in community and New World Women, for instance, my series is Are You an Everyday Mystic? So I pick an aspect of being a mystic woman on the planet in each of the 12 sessions that we're running. And the last one was about abundance and prosperity. And it's so cool to have women come together and be willing to sit in the discomfort of the ways that we have hidden the goddess within, dismissed, or tried to skirt around publicly anyway, right? Owning the goddess energy that comes through us, and even being prosperous and abundant and in our power and living authentically. Somehow there's conditioning and programming that floats in to most of us as women on the planet, that when we can be together in community and boldly and courageously, as you've both said, look at that, examine that, reflect on that, and see if it's something we want to keep, hang on to as our identity. And if not, hold each other as witness, right? And hold each other in love and call each other forward and really uncondition and reprogram into being a New World Women, into understanding that when we do better, everyone rises in our whole community. And when we shine our light individually, it's to be a flashlight for someone else to shine their light. We're not in competition, right? That whole model of it's a pie and be careful how you slice it, and what you give away. And like, oh, for heaven's sakes, people, it's a candle, it's a flame. The more you share it, right, the brighter it becomes. So we're here to be, as a community in New World Women, to find our way and to be the light, because the world is going to be rebuilding after the wave of destruction, and the new era is coming. And we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones that are going to build this prosperous life for I think of it as every living cell on the planet, right? That's our calling.
Right. That's what collective consciousness is all about. And collective consciousness doesn't just mean with each other, it means with all things, with all of creation. And there was something else that you were saying. So when you were talking about, we are the flashlight and somebody else is darkness, I'm thinking about, and of course I don't know it by heart. I can only give the broad strokes, but the Marianne Williamson quote that begins with, "We are afraid of our light much more than our darkness, and we, are essentially afraid to succeed much more than we're afraid to fail, but we must own these things because it is for the benefit of others."
Mhm.
Because I've also heard that any spiritual practice that does not involve service to others is doomed to fail, right? It's like it's baked into the cake of not all, but many spiritual paths. And I think there's a reason for that. Um, so what, and you said the goddess resides within us. I believe that's true. I believe that she is both within us and something outside of us. She is intrinsic, but also immanent. And because she is in everything, right? She's in the floor and the lights and the chair and in places that we don't normally think to look for her. But if you look at um, the belief that it's like the Charge of the Goddess by Doreen, I always say her name wrong, Valiente, where at the end she says, if you don't find it within, you'll never find it without,
Mhm.
right? Um, my personal belief is that we need the goddess to help us find it within. But my personal belief has evolved over the years to really believe that the goddess, her will for us is to feel as good as we can, as often as we can. And like you said, we have to get out of the messaging that we've received our whole lives, not just as, and I don't think this is true just for women, but this whole, you've got to hustle and scrape and bleed to get ahead, to be prosperous. And that is not necessarily the case, right?
Mhm.
Because when we're in our own flow and when we're in our empowerment, it should be easy. That's what I think. It should be easy. If I love what I'm doing and making a living at it, it should be easy. It should feel easy,
Mhm.
right? Do you agree with that?
Mhm. Well, if you think about the fact that there are probably tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are working really hard and they are not making it. So that, idea of work hard and you will achieve everything and have what you need is not true. And it goes deeper than that, thinking of the goddess. I believe that it is true. The goddess calls us inward to stand with her, stand in front of her, learn from her, be inspired by her. So she calls us inward and she calls us forward, as you said, Michele. And she also calls us upward and outward.
Mm.
So I really feel that knowing that and living from that place, I really do feel I'm using this word a second time. It gives us courage.
Mhm.
Courage is, the root of that word is from the heart.
Right,
And so, and what you were saying about it should be easy. I don't know about easy, but I do think that there should be some kind of a flow to it that doesn't feel hard.
right,
And we getting back to that idea of community, we can model that for one another. And in
right.
New World Women, I've heard so many women say to me when I'm with the group and I'm learning these new things or being awakened, having this wisdom awakened within me, that I feel more emboldened to go out into the world and be more of myself, my highest, truest, best self.
Right.
Whereas before I might have like hid or stayed small, played small, didn't speak up, all of that sort of thing. And so, that community aspect is important, and the returning to the goddess, however you understand the goddess to be.
Right.
And so, Michele, I know you have some really extraordinary thoughts on this too that you would love, that I would love to hear you share with us.
Yeah, this is rich and deep, and you are two wise women. What comes to mind that I'll share is in my book, I use a level of three models of consciousness. And Kelly, you talked about our collective consciousness. So both of these happens in society, in collection, as well as individually. So in the beginning of our human development, where I am individual, where it's us against the world, and it's based on scarcity and lack and fear and control. And as a society at that level of development, it's about oppression and greed and enslavement, right? And those are some of the systems that no matter how hard we work, if we are individually at that level, it is a lot of bleeding and scraping, and we're intersecting with societal norms and policies, even, right, that are intended to keep us down and out and enslaved. And what we're talking about here is through the embodiment of our goddess, we move into an I am interconnected. And that's where the flow is. That's where the ease, flow, and grace, I call it EFG, right? And in that, we are in alignment. We're much more in tune with intuition, synchronicity. We send out an intention, and all of a sudden we meet that person that we didn't know who is the neighbor's aunt, right? That has that thing, that business, and that connection. And so we start to recognize it's not us individually ego based, and it's about us being interconnected, and there's more than enough. And I believe that societally, we have that same opportunity to move into something that's more balanced, that the divine feminine rises and is in balance with the divine masculine energy. And we are about serving every cell on the planet. And there is enough. And it's, again, back to the orchestra metaphor, it's really about everyone doing their very best. Every system, from education to healthcare to politics to finance, supports the ease, flow, and grace and the flourishing of every human being. It's possible, right? And so, this is a perfect example of as New World Women, as one rises out of the model of enslavement and victimhood or ego driven into owning their presence and their goddess energy, their goddess self, their inner spark, society can match that vibration, that level of development. And we can have policies and institutions and organizations that support the flourishing so that every single person comes in as a seed and flourishes into their most ease-filled, joy-filled. I'm with you, Kelly. I actually believe fundamentally human beings are here to experience joy in the interconnected opportunity we have on this planet. And it's taking a revolution, an inner and outer revolution, and the goddess rising and her energy and all of her beauty is supporting it.
So, are you familiar with spiral dynamics?
Definitely.
Okay. That's
Mhm.
not surprising, right? So that's for our listeners that don't know, the theory is that us as individuals and humanity as a whole, we cycle in and out of these different levels of consciousness. And I think there's seven, eight?
Depends on the
There is.
model, anywhere from 3 to 12.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So depending upon who you listen to, we are on the precipice of moving from one into the other. And part of the next color, right? Because they're ranked by color and not by number, so that nobody feels any better than anybody else. Um, is that I heard someone describe it this way, that we're moving out of a who do I need to be to survive this moment into who am I? And who am I in relation to everyone else? And I think that's really it's a kind of a simplistic view, but I think it makes the point, right? Um, and I mean, because we do live in a world so dominated by news cycles and social media, and it really depends on where your information is coming from. And that's where I feel like the algorithms serve us, right? Because all of my feeds aren't about politics because that's not who I'm following or who's following me. Or so in those circles, I feel like I'm in kind of a bubble sometimes, but it still makes me feel good to know that people are doing things like organizing and learning how to live off the land, and more people are investigating communal living. And because the economy is what it is, families are starting, multiple generations of a family are returning to living together. And I think those are all really positive things. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel like more people, and particularly women, are becoming awake all the time, like every day. There's more and more and more and more of us, and that momentum, I think, will continue to grow. I had this conversation with somebody the other day about, because I'm often accused of just burying my head in the sand. That isn't the case. I know just enough about what's happening in the world so that I don't walk out my door one morning and am surprised that there's been, nuclear war or whatever the horrible thing is, right? So I am informed, but because I have faith, for all we know, we've been recreating this cycle for thousands of years. You know what I mean? We don't know. Perhaps having the world on fire and the patriarchy at the top of its game, and then rolling over back to a matriarchal society, for all we know, that's happened a bunch of times already. And this is just the time that it's happening again. You know what I mean? I think we can't not make that shift. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that? Or because, as I'm often quick to tell people, many people, especially men, think that the matriarchy is the opposite of a patriarchy. It's not. Matriarchies are egalitarian societies with much more equality. Do some of them have more women in power? Sure. But that doesn't mean that the men in matriarchal societies have no power, right? It means we're all working together, just like what we're talking about, right? That level of consciousness where we are all interrelated, and our spiritual lives and our material lives are no longer separate. Because in ancient times, because now it's like our material life is here and our spiritual life is here, but in ancient times, there was no division. My spiritual life was not something separate from my day-to-day material life, right? And I think that's part of that consciousness that we're moving into. It doesn't have to be something I need to set aside time to do, because I'm living from that place, walking hand in hand with the goddess. We're a team,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes I need, a mother or a lover or a sister or a friend, but most of the time we are co-creators, just as we are in New World Women. So I have a question for you. And I think I had shared this with Dawn when I read it. I read an article, uh, a blog post that this woman made in Medium about why women's spiritual entrepreneur businesses fail. And she said, because she threw out some ridiculous statistic, like 96% of women who have a spiritual side gig also work a full-time job. Like very few of us are having our spiritual work be our sole source of income. And the solution to that is to work together, because if we don't work together, we're just going to be each other's clients, and that's not an infinite number of clients, right? So I'm curious to hear your opinions about that, both of you.
This is one of the reasons that Mecca, Shawn, and I decided to place this focus on Birdie and the community aspects of New World Women is because so many women, and in that article, I read that article, it was excellent. So many women are trying to do it alone, and that's the problem. Doing it alone without the resources and knowledge we need to be able to bring our gift, whatever that might be, a gem necklace or a teaching or whatever it might be. But going it alone is very challenging. And a lot of times women would run out of money, energy, time, all of that before they got their product out there to the world or their service out there to the world. And that's very discouraging. And many of them are not going to start up again. They'll be like, that was a failure. And so, I mean, the other thing we have to keep in mind is is history. Women have generally not been paid for what we do, the healing, the cooking, the teaching, all of that. Or if we did, it was not commensurate with what we were bringing forth. And let's face it, in order to live in this world, we need currency. And our currency is money. I mean, just to eat and, eat healthfully and have clean water and have a home and all of that. So what's the answer to it? The answer is we come together and support one another. And that was why when we were creating Birdie, BIRDI, we decided that we would make it possible for women who don't even have a website or an e-commerce store to bypass those very challenging things.
And expensive.
And well, that's the thing. Right in the beginning of us discussing this, I looked up the statistics and found that for a woman to start a business in the United States, it costs between $30,000 and $40,000. I don't know many women who have that kind of money that they'd be able to invest in that. And getting investors is a whole other thing, that
Or a small business loan.
can be our small business loan.
Yeah.
Um, and so we thought, well, let's remove those barriers. Let's bring women together. We have our Business Maven membership where women will network together, learn, like, you need to do this, and this in this order in order to be successful. Because a lot of times when we don't know what we're doing, and I will include myself in that group because I've been in business for over 30 years. And in the beginning, I was like thinking, oh, I need to spend money on marketing before I even knew what my business was really called and who it was really for. I didn't know. And so we thought, well, what if we can, guide and counsel women, show them what they need to do to be successful, be there right with them as they are doing it. And then you don't even have to have a website. You can just list your product or service on Birdie. You'll have your own landing page with your bio and your picture and a video if you want. So that barrier is removed. And the marketing, instead of you trying to market your own one business product or service, your product teaching or service, it's going to be people shopping for all the different things we have on there and then seeing your products too. And so I believe that collaboration is queen. That is the name of our podcast in New World Women. And the idea of supporting one another. And it's been said a couple of times here, there is more than enough for everyone. There's more than enough business. There are more than enough resources. We just have the mindset that there's this pie and there's only so much and I better get mine, or if I take too much, it's not enough for somebody else. It's unlimited. And so is the love and creativity that comes from women when we are supporting one another's dreams and visions by bringing our gifts and skills and talents out to the world. So it's not just about earning money, although that's fabulous and gives us much more power and agency, but visualize a world where all of these women's gifts in the form of products and services and teachings are out there in the world. Imagine that instead of just somebody sitting at their dining room table saying, I have to give up. I can't do this anymore. It's too hard. I'm by myself. So I know that that's the world that we are wanting to and are creating for women, is collaborate, come together, support one another, even down to practical things like I want to get more Google reviews so I can have more, show up in the algorithms a little bit better. That we have women within the organization who say, you know what, I'll try your product and write you a review. To that level, that's just one very small example. But
Mhm.
that's what collaboration can do. And I believe the goddess smiles upon women collaborating. I really, truly do.
I have a follow-up question to that, but first, Michelle, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I appreciate the kind of naming of the qualities of the goddess, and collaboration is one of them. And it's the competition to collaboration. It's the whole idea about sharing ideas, right? Versus information is kept secret, and you have to be in the club, or we're not going to, right? To share our wisdom, I think, is a huge part of it. I think transparency, right? We're moving from this secret, hidden to this, it's more transparent because the whole underlying condition is what we're talking about of the feminine move. To move to the feminine is that our mindset and our beliefs literally change, right? We drop away from these limiting beliefs that I need to do this by myself and I'm going to amass wealth of X, Y, and Z. Pick your abundance field, to this place where we're starting to really understand that abundance in New World Women and on Birdie Marketplace is about embodying and living, like the integration and embodiment of the goddess qualities to literally support each other individually so it supports the collective. And then every woman, as you're talking about in spiral dynamics, Kelly, we are moving around the whip of the spiral, right? And in that accelerated place, lots of stuff falls off as we stabilize in a new level that may look similar to the ancients, but it's still at a different level. That makes sense, right?
Mhm.
And so my understanding of this new era is that we can stabilize in a sustainable way where this idea of the balance of the masculine and feminine, as you're saying, Kelly, it's not power over in the feminine way at all, supports every single system throughout the whole of society. Every area of commerce can operate this way, and we can all win. There is enough. And I think of it individually too, in the terms of abundance. It's not just abundance in money, which matters because it's our current currency rate of exchange. It's our abundance in health, mental, physical, emotional health. It's our abundance in our environment where we live, right? Just having a beautiful place. It's an environment in how we take care of ourselves, in our relationships, right? In our desire to grow and continue to learn, in abundance in our creativity. I mean, think of all the ways that prosperity and abundance can permeate our lives. And once we can live with that mindset and the belief that I'm worth it and that my living in my power makes a difference, right? And yes, we are coming out of an era where, not so long ago, I, as a woman, couldn't own my own credit card in this country unless I had a man sign for it. I mean, in my lifetime, in my adult lifetime, right? So yes, we are transcending, and it takes some inertia, right, to move around that whip of the spiral dynamics. And then what we're all talking about is really literally imagining and bringing into form, manifesting what it looks like in an entrepreneurial world, and filtering into organizations and institutions. What is our vision and how do we embody it and integrate it into everyday life so that all cells flourish on this planet?
So my follow-up question, well, a couple things. One, if the economy collapses, which it might, all of this will be for naught because we'll be back to having a barter economy, which would not be the worst thing. I do know groups of people who are trying to do that. They're trading, tarot readings for rune readings or astrology chart readings for past life regression, or which I think that all has a lot of potential. But I think that's way down the road. What I keep thinking when we talk about the collaboration is what I would like to see is partnerships to form partnerships or triple ships or
Mhm.
four-person ships, or I don't know what the words are for those things. Maybe I would on a different day, but um, I want, just as an example, like two women meet in New World Women, and they become the like the tech chicks in the garage building the next big AI platform. You know what I mean? And that's tech might be a poor example because that's part of the reason we're in the boat that we're in now. But you know what I mean? Like two women inspiring each other to the point where they have come up with a new creation that they can create together.
Mhm. It's already happening
It
Oh,
in
is.
New
good.
World Women. It's already happening. Women are collaborating on teachings, promoting one another's products. I don't know of anybody who's created a new technology, but I would not be surprised if that did not happen.
Right. Or a new product
Or a brand new product or
that
something that
they're
serves.
sharing that they're sharing the income.
Yes,
You know what
yes.
I mean? Because
It's
that's how.
already happening, and we're just, this birdie is just taking flight, and it's already happening. And I believe we will see more and more of that because the trust is there,
Mhm.
because of the community itself. It's like-hearted women, and so when we have that with that kind of support and the inspiration, I wanted to go back to something you said a while back, Kelly, about the archies, the matriarchy, patriarchy, and how they seem to have shifted through time, right? We have matriarchy, then patriarchy, then maybe are we going into another matriarchy? And you're right, matriarchy is not the opposite of patriarchy. It's a whole different thing.
It's remarkable to me how many people don't
Right.
know
But
that.
it's
But
kind of understandable because we are very dual thinkers, good, bad, right, wrong.
also
Anyway,
part of the problem.
also part of the problem. That's right. We want to unify some of that. But, you know, um, I'm such a fan of Rand Eisler's work where she
Mhm.
talks about the masculine and feminine. And I'm not talking about embodiment of, but rather the energies of masculine and feminine, which we all have both within us. But
And
she
so does the
talks,
goddess.
yeah, absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
why we don't need a god and a goddess. She's got it all.
Right. So, but what I believe we are merging into is we've got this, the patriarchy is roared up like, it's the last dying gasps
Yeah.
of an unhealthy system. It's unhealthy and unhelpful. So it's roaring up right now. And the answer is not to have another matriarchy, in my opinion. The answer to me is to harmonize masculine and feminine. And that would be a whole new era that we have not, well, I won't say we haven't seen before, but it would be very nice to see that occur where, because we
But
need both, right?
but
Like
don't you think that matriarchies did balance masculine and feminine since they were
perhaps, we don't
egalitarian?
know. We weren't there, but like, why
Right,
not
but
create something new that does the things that creates, excuse me, that manifests the vision that we want to see. And
right.
so, yes, I think that's probably true.
Well,
But if
and
we,
there are matriarchies still in existence in the world
yes,
today,
I
just
wrote
not
about them in my
just
book,
not here.
Venerable Women. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's true. And yet I think that it would be a hard sell to a lot of people to say, oh, we're going to be in matriarchy right now. I feel like we want people to feel like they're all included in what gets created next. And so that's something that, I think of it this way. Somebody told me about the balloon that the balloon is the masculine and the air is the feminine, and they need each other because if the balloon is just laying there on the ground, it's just It's just a piece of rubber, right? But
Mhm.
if it's filled up with air, then it becomes its full self. The air without the container of the masculine, the balloon, is just floating around with no anchoring, no action, and so on and so forth. So I use that metaphor a lot. But, and the last thing I want to say about this is because I feel very passionate. Right now, we are having a very dual experience of humanity, right? We have one part of our country that sees the world in one way, and the another part of the country that sees the world in very different ways. I think it boils down to me consciousness and we consciousness. And so that goes back to the collaboration point again, the we consciousness. And what we'd have to say about the people with the me consciousness, dang, they've had a great vision. They have held their vision for 40 years. Not a good vision for people overall, but you got to give them credit. They've held the vision and they've manifested for now what they want, right? So it's time for the we consciousness people to not be so freaked out by the me consciousness people and what they're doing, but rather really stand true to the vision of what we want to see created. Hold that vision and step into it as we go forward. And that's why New World Women is called New World Women, because we are dedicated to creating a new world that's better for all. And the last thing I'll say about that is people have criticized us and said, well, why is it just for women? That's our area of expertise. And we do know that when women do better, so does everyone around them. And that's where we are keeping our focus. So, yeah.
So I'm going to push back on that a little bit. Not
Sure.
what you just said, but I do think in human history, we've had a balance of male and female, and that was 30,000 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
because we know that goddess worship goes back 30,000 years. The
Right.
patriarchy can really only claim the last 6,000 years.
That's exactly right.
Um, so I do think that matriarchies embody the masculine and the feminine, just as I believe that the goddess embodies the masculine and the feminism. We've lost sight of that because we're all about, I guess when I say pushback, I mean, I don't think we need something new. I think we just need to return to the way it was. Because, like, for how many thousands of years were we told and did we believe that when we were hunter-gatherer societies, that men were the hunters and women were it wasn't that way. Hunter-gatherer, we were all hunter-gatherers, right? Which included that balance both spiritually and materially. We all did everything together. And that's what I would like to return to. But I think that macrocosm exists within matriarchal societies, at least based on what I have read about matriarchal societies, past and present.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, whatever we call it, we want
mhm,
something different and better than we have right now.
right,
And so that is the ultimate, the ultimate goal and vision is to have something that allows for all people to be the
right.
fullest expression of themselves. And I know, Michelle, you're really wanting to add something.
Chomping at the
I
bit.
can't wait
Let
to
me let me
wait
just
to
say
hear
one
it.
other thing, which is
Sure.
that I've talked about this on the podcast before. Intellectually, I understand that whatever it is we call God is neither male or female.
Mhm,
It's a non-physical entity. I get that.
mhm,
But I think, given where we are at, it is important to call it the divine feminine, the sacred feminine, the goddess. I think right now it is important to use gendered language in that way, because look at what happened when we allowed gendered language to be used in the other way,
mhm.
right? That's the last 6,000 years. So anyway, go on, Michelle. I know you're kind of chomping at the bit probably at this stage.
I want to just say how delightful this is to get to know both of you even more. So, Kelly, what I'm learning about you is that you are an advanced embodied student of the divine feminine on the planet. And you hold like the end point of bringing that forward, like a full circle. You're at the end of the heroine's journey, right? You're back at home, right? We've had this at this level, and we're walking through it, and you can see where we're going back to a place where what you're describing is a very healthy, very honorable balance of the masculine and feminine. We all hunt when it's hunting season in the tribe, right? We all gather, we all plant, right? Everybody, and yes, individually, people might be a better singer or a better person with the bow and arrow, right? So you bring your gifts and talents and strength forward, but it's the whole team, the whole system moves as one. And you have that vision because you have done a lot of study, you've read, you can feel it in your bones when you're talking to us. And I love it. And what I'm hearing Dawn say is you also see that. And I know you well enough to know you've done a lot of studies on the divine dance of Shakti and Shiva, right? And what gets created out of that. And what we're all saying is because most people have not spent their entire adult life in the deep dive that the three of us have, and can see so clearly the optimal, undistorted, healthy relationship and what it could look like and what it can mean to everyone. And so what we're all being asked to do in addition during this time period is to be a bridge. So let's say 90, I'm going to use your same percentage, Kelly, as failed entrepreneurs. 96% of humanity can't even fathom what we're talking about. And all three of us can feel it in our bones that this would be optimal for where we're going to land as we whip around the spiral, right? And we stabilize. And so each one of us is called to hold that vision and know it in our bones, and then see what comes up for the other 96% of the humans in service, right? We're all here in service because we can't be spiritual beings having a human life without being in service. It's kind of like the balloon, right? It takes both, it takes all. So how do we bridge? How do we have breadcrumbs? We have a birdie. We build a birdie. You have your podcast, Kelly, right? We have these ways that people can have access because they can't quite access what we're talking about today in a gestalt way. Like, oh, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to get it, right? And all the healthy, just unhealthy, distorted fear, scarcity, exploitation, I think is necessary to survive, right? Because we're moving into this. And I think of the same image that you have done. I think of them as concentric circles. In the first circle is me. And in that circle, let's get as healthy as we can. Emotional, conversational, spiritual intelligence, right? Physical, right? And then we get to that point where we can be in the we. And the me is inside of it. We eat better. We feel better. Even physically, our senses, for any of us who have stabilized in the we, are sharper, right? We're more sharply aware of subtle energies. We see, as Kelly, when you talk, you are a non-local talker, right? You take a history 30,000 years ago and you see it in this now moment, right? You literally live in the non-local. Both of you do. I can hear it in your, right? And so when we embody the we, all of our choices, how to create birdie comes from that place, so that other people who still are mired in only me have access to their own lived experience in the we. And I'm just going to throw in there, because I'm a 3-tier consciousness gal at the moment. That's in my book. The third level of consciousness is I am infinite. And once you know yourself, we call it maybe pure awareness. Kelly, you're talking about, it is non-gender. But once I personally have that embodied experience of the interconnected, or thee, so it's me, we, and thee, I can't move about the planet without knowing that I am the spark of creation. Non-gendered, I mean, the non-gendered even makes Source kind of giggle, right? Right? The cosmic sense of humor. And yes, this balance of the masculine and feminine. And to speak it forward, Kelly, as you do so beautifully in every podcast, is the invitation to balance and your bridge, and the way you speak to the divine feminine as if it's already possible, if it's already there, builds that bridge through your podcast, through your work in the world, as does New World Women with Birdie. as does my book and the conversations or
Yes.
the classes I teach or the coaching I do. Dawn and I both were chatting earlier. I'll close with this, that we have coaching clients coming, women in their 30s and 40s, heading up brand new ways of being in organizations, being in, oh, it's just super impactful positions. And I get to support them. I feel like I'm back to my orchestra. I don't know why that's so prevalent today. Maybe both of you are orchestra people, but I feel like I'm like in the private lesson, right in the side, like, come on in here and let's work on that mindset and belief. Because as you were saying, Kelly, I'm also watching people in the barter system, living off the land, getting to know their neighbors, right? But if we still have the mindset of being enslaved or submitting to authoritarianism, or I don't have enough, or I'm not enough, or I don't deserve enough, none of that's going to matter, no matter what it is, unless we can raise up into this we, our entire self identity, dispel the limiting beliefs and the negative self talk and the programming and conditioning that says it has to be this way. There has to be a victim and a perpetrator and a savior. BS, we're all saying. And so the ways that I'm listening to the two of you build that bridge, because you both see it already fully manifested in humanity, historically and in current time. And yes, it takes, we are the bridge builders to say, move right with our flashlight, walk this way, move towards this, and we'll get there together. I'm off on a tangent.
Mm.
Thanks. Michele, I don't know if you're aware. So my offerings in Birdie, or so I do spiritual advising for women who are either already on or would like to be on a goddess path. So a lot of what you were saying is what I try and teach them, because when women come to me for spiritual guidance, just like me, just like you, just like Dawn, just like every woman, we still have limiting spiritual beliefs that we were either taught by our nuclear family, and even if not that, just the society that we were in. Um, and it is one of the hardest old fractured belief systems to get rid of, especially
100%.
if you were raised in some Christian variant, Catholic, Lutheran, Protestant, and the Protestants are a little more relaxed, but you know what I mean, or the Methodists. But it's so hard. It took me most of my life to stop believing in a system of punishment and reward,
Good for
because it's
you.
just not true.
100%.
So I tell these women, if you believe in a God that punishes, you need a different God. That's why the podcast is called The Girlfriend God. It's one of the reasons it's called The Girlfriend God, right? You need somebody who's your cheerleader and in your corner and loves you unconditionally and doesn't judge you and would certainly never punish you, who only wants what is good for you. So I think the more, and as you said, like, I think we're all saying the more we can embody that for each other, because it takes a long time to build that kind of confidence in yourself and in a relationship with a non-physical entity, right? It takes work to be able to trust that that source is there and supports you and all of the rest. But um, when we model it for each other, one of my favorite things to say to somebody, if I have a friend who's upset and they're beating themselves up in some capacity, I say, take it off you and put it on me. What would you say to me? What would you say to me? And whatever that is, you need to take your own advice, right?
Love that.
Because we cannot, with the right mindset, we cannot fail. We just can't. It's not possible. When I have this power that walks beside me that creates worlds at my back, how could I fail? I can get in my own way, but
For
that's
sure.
not the same thing as failing outright, right? So I feel like that's the internal work, is The more I can see myself the way I believe my goddess sees me, the closer I am to being in alignment, both with her and with myself and with others. It's a triplicate, right? That's my part of my Holy Trinity theory, which is a topic for another time. But yeah, I mean, it's all, we're in it together and we're in it with the goddess. And we can't, with that, I think, when you've got that going on, I don't think you can fail. You could try, right? But all that ever stands in the way, all that ever stands between me and my goddess and me and the life that I want to create is me. Only war I ever fight is between me and me. That's it.
Powerful invitation to everybody listening to set down, I don't know, take our fists and open them up, right? And
Let
let that
go.
flow, let that goddess, who I believe lives at our soul level, right, then
Right,
completely interacts with our multidimensional self directly.
right.
And then we hold a particular vibration of attunement that's in alignment, that's in coherence. And that's what creates the magic, creates the joy, creates the easeful and grace. And then when we feel ourselves fall into a lower vibration of fear or greed or judging or envy or pick all the things, right? We can just catch ourselves, give ourselves a big hug, bring that part of ourselves right along with us and say, get your stuff on, Birdie, at New World Women. It's time to be visible. It's time to be seen. There are women standing in line waiting for your support and your service and your wisdom and to align with your truth. You know, Kelly, you're offering as the spiritual coach and mentor, right? You have years, decades of experience, and they can find you there. You know,
Yes.
I would be shocked if there aren't a few people lined up in Birdie to come visit you following the airing of this podcast,
I
right?
know it's true.
This is how it works.
I sure hope so.
Yes, what a beautiful affirmation, Michele. Thank you for that. And Kelly, thank you for your wisdom always. And there's something about the timbre of your voice that really it goes inside of each of us when you speak. And so maybe that's that orchestra idea coming back again. And
Perhaps. Because I have been told that before, not to toot my own horn, but I
oh,
had a
toot it, toot it. We need it. Toot it. Go
I
on.
had one of my best one of my closest and oldest friends in New Jersey when we were in high school. Whenever I would call his house, his father would answer the phone and say, Mark, it's your friend Kelly, the one whose voice makes me blush on the phone.
Ah,
So I have been told that a large portion of my life. So I have a voice for podcast and radio, right? Used to say I have a voice for radio. Now I think it's I have the voice for podcast and audiobooks. So Michele, Dawn has been on the show before, but would you like to answer the three questions that I ask all of our new guests at the end
be
of the show?
delighted.
So, first question. I forgot what the first question is.
Are they the same as last season when I was on? It was about your favorite show, favorite book, and favorite and the song that describes
But
the
I
soundtrack.
thought what was the first one?
I thought it was like something you're watching.
That's the
Stream.
second that's the
Oh,
second
that's the second
question.
one. It's been a while since we
It
recorded.
has been a while. Oh, I remember. I remember. Tell me something about yourself that other people would be surprised to learn. And I know that all of us are an open book, but there's got to be some quirky thing. Like mine, for example, is that I like to take black and white photos with an analog camera in cemeteries.
And mine was I twirl a baton.
Good. Oh, what would something be? Can't think of anything radically unusual. Something I can move back and forth between the dimensions and talk to beings that live in other solar systems. How about that?
How about that?
I might want to rethink my twirling the baton thing because
I know, right? She kind of put us to shame.
Just like, and I do it regularly with clients, and so I'm just going to be white out there. I don't usually like go quite that transparent, but we've been talking about it, so I'm like, all right, that's what's coming. Whoop, I got a buzz on the side of my head, which always means, yeah.
Yeah. So the second question is, what is your current favorite television series? And if you don't watch TV, then what are you reading?
I don't watch much TV. I would have to say one of my favorite books, and I'm rereading is The Field by Lynn McTaggart.
I've read that.
Mhm.
I've read that.
Just continue to like have dimensional awareness,
Yeah.
and her way she meta researches, she does both the left and right brain. I have recently taken another dive into that one.
Okay. And then the final question is, if your life were a movie, what would be the theme song on the soundtrack?
I don't know. I've got Star Wars coming to mind.
That could be. We've had all kinds of answers. If you want the Star Wars theme, it's yours. Nobody's picked that one yet.
I do. I don't know. It's just
All right.
multi-worlds coming together, exploding into new possibilities.
Okay. I do have a public playlist on Spotify that has everyone's answers to this question, which I need to update. I think I only have up to season 3 on there. But as you can imagine, it is quite an eclectic list. Do you want to know what Dawn's was?
Yes.
Don't Rain on My Parade.
Oh, I actually listened to it because
Barbara
you had it.
Streisand had to be Barbara Streisand's version.
Yeah.
Uh,
I do
Yeah,
remember you
exactly.
talking about that on your podcast. Great.
All right, ladies, you've improved my mood a little bit, given
Oh.
me a break from just hammering at it and hammering at it and hammering at it. But now I'm going to go back to hammering at it. So, but it is Friday. Happy Friday. I don't know if that means anything to either of you. It doesn't to me because I work all the time. So,
I thought it was Thursday.
oh, you know what? It is Thursday. You see, I'm ahead of myself because I
I got
never
very
get to say
nervous
it
when you
is.
said that because I have a commitment that would be taking place right now, and I'm not there.
It is Thursday. It is Thursday.
Time doesn't really exist anyway. So.
That is very true. And like I said, I just like you guys, I'm sure, work all the time. So days are somewhat meaningless to me unless there's something on the calendar.
Exactly.
So, okay. Well, I will be speaking to both of you soon, I imagine, what with our big birdie lunch
You got
right
it.
around the corner. And I am furiously trying to get those videos edited for Mecca.
Wonderful.
But
Okay.
the spiritual services part is the most important thing. So
Yes, it
as
is.
long as that's ready to go.
Thank you for doing that.
Of course, I love doing it. I do. I love doing it because I have yet to work with a woman who has come to me and said, I struggle with this. And I went, I've never struggled with that. You know what I mean? I know all the things. So I challenge anyone in New World Women to surprise me with a struggle I haven't had.
Love it.
Okay, ladies. Well, as always, at the end of the episode, I will say, may the peace and the love of the goddess be with you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will speak with both of you very soon.
Thank you, Kelly. And thank you,
Thank you,
Michele.
Kelly.
It was
Thank you, Don.
lovely.
Thanks for watching or listening to The Girlfriend God. Don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe, follow, and comment. Episodes drop every Saturday morning at 8 a.m., and you can follow the Girlfriend God on social media on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.